On today's Writing Done Right, we are going to talk about style guides, creating your own, and when you want to create your own and when you want to stick within a pre-created guide for you. Thanks for checking out this video by Writing Done Right. I'm Thomas Morosky, an author and a technology consultant. And today I want to talk a little bit about style guides. And there were some things that just came to my mind and some things I was thinking about here. Now, a style guide, what is it? A style guide dictates how you are styling your text. Obviously, you write it, you edit it, and then it needs to be styled in some way that makes sense for the publication. If you're doing something in a journalistic format, you'll use either Chicago or the MLA. There's probably a few other ones out there as well. And so if you're writing for a specific publication and you know who it is, they will tell you what style guide to use or give you some tips and thoughts. And so if you know who you're writing for, you want to go in and style your manuscript to them unless they tell you otherwise. Now, I have a lot of videos on this channel explaining how to use style guides or how to create style guides, how to put things together. But a style guide will include things like how are your references formatted? How are the in-text citations done? All of these types of things, what does your section headers and breakdowns look like? All of these are important things that is involved in the style guide. Now, there are times that you may not know who your publication is. Maybe you're working on a novel, and yes, even novels have style guides. But if you don't know who your publisher is, it's best to just do a very simple either double or single spaced, usually double spaced manuscript on regular 8.5 by 11 paper that when you go to print out, an editor will be happy printing it out, having enough space to edit on and things like that. So that's the thing. But the fact of the matter is that there are some cases that you know what the guide is. There are some cases you do not. And so start always with doing a manuscript that is nice and easy to print and to edit, and then add the styling in later after you are done. Now, if you are self-publishing, you are not going to be beholden to a style guide. So you have to effectively do your own. In this case here, you want to make sure that you are doing something that is consistent within the work itself. So if you look at my books, which mostly my Christian books, in my Christian books, I put my references to the scripture verses in parentheses right after the part I'm quoting or talking about. I capitalize references to God. I put all of those notes inside of there. Now, there is a Christian style guide which was created by Zondervan, which is attempting to be an industry leader in Christian publishing, that pretty much goes against everything I think should be in a Christian guide. So every time I hear people talk about the Christian Manual of Style, I just kind of chuckle at the nonsense inside of my head. Now, if I were writing a book published by Zondervan, I would have to abide by that guide because that's what they want. If I'm publishing for some other periodical or some other Christian work that also accepts that style guide, yes, I would be forced to use that style guide. But if I'm not forced to use that, I use my own style guide with those things that I have mentioned in light of what is in the books I mentioned. Now, there is one book I had that was Christian that we did deviate from that, and that is my story, my testimony book, Half My Life. Because that one was mostly written to a definitely non-Christian audience, we actually put any scripture references, at least in the story part of the book, not necessarily the teaching part, but in the story part of the book, we did put those in as footnotes. The Christian Manual Style Guide wants you to put them in as endnotes, meaning they're after either the end of the chapter or at the end of the book, and I do not like that at all. We did put them in as footnotes. There's not a lot of them, and we did not want to break up the text of a story, a personal testimony with that. That is the one exception I did, but we were consistent throughout that book. And that's the thing you want to do if you are self-publishing, is to be consistent throughout your book. It doesn't matter what you're doing if you are self-publishing, but you have to be consistent. You don't want to put references, let's just say maybe you have an industry technical reference number or something. You don't want to put those in parentheses in the first half of the book and then footnotes in the other half of the book. That starts becoming weird, confusing, and unprofessional. So consistency is the key, but it doesn't matter how you do it as long as it makes sense when you are self-publishing. So these are the elements that go into a style guide. The first is footnotes and endnotes. Are you using just one of them or are you using both of them? Me personally, I like footnotes better unless there is a ton of them. So if there is a ton of them, I will put those as endnotes, usually at the end of the book. We did this in my book, I Am Not Amused. We had a ton of references went into that particular book. I think there were close to 100 references. And just to simplify things, we put them all at the very end of the book so that, and some of those were just a simple reference. Some of those were a long explanation of something. So for the most part, we did that. In my book, Happy Holidays, myself and my co-author, I believe we made a little bit more use of footnotes in there for explanations. There were not nearly as many of them. And there were some things that just kind of needed some on-page context that we thought was important, that footnotes are a lot easier than, oh, you see a number, let's flip to the back of the book or the end of the chapter to read the note. No, we wanted to put all of those notes on the same page that they were referenced. And so again, we were consistent throughout that particular book, although that deviates from book to book that I do. So you want to be consistent with whether you're using footnotes or endnotes, or if you're using them both for specific reasons, just be consistent. Since I do a lot of Christian work, how am I putting my Bible references in there? I put them in parentheses if it's something that is quoted, and I will, obviously if it's, you know what I'm meaning. If it's I'm mentioning the verse and then block quoting it, we don't necessarily parentheses those because that flows with the text. But if it doesn't flow with the text, it always gets parentheses. But if you want to do the footnotes or the endnote approach, you just have to be consistent throughout. It's the same if you have any form of referencing for your industry standard. You want to include those references in a consistent manner throughout. The next is the format of the references themselves. Whether, the MLA in Chicago are slightly different. Usually is at the, I know when I was doing my dissertation, we use the academic journal. You start with the authors and then you do the title and it's regular. And then you do the date in bold, and then you do the periodical name in italics, and then you do the page numbers. So, there's a standard that goes with each one. You might, if you're self-publishing something that is going out to a wider audience that might be used to a type of style, you would want to pick that style, be it MLA or Chicago. You'd want to be familiar with that. But at the very least, if you're doing it all yourself, just be very consistent in how you're doing it throughout your book. The style guide is also going to include things like how is your chapter structure, how are your headings and subheadings, any call out boxes that you have. All of these types of things, you just, again, want to be consistent throughout. There's no hard, fast rule about what you must do for each of these. But if you're dropping the first cap under sections, you want to make sure that you do not miss a section if you are doing that throughout your book. You just got to be consistent. And that really is my last point. Consistency is the key. You want to, after you're done with your editing, and you might have your storyline editing, you have your line editing, you get all these things done, you're going to have to do another editing step to make sure all of your styling is consistent throughout your book as well. So hopefully that helped you out to understand style guiding in the reference of a self-published work. Just something to think about before you just throw your book out there. Gotta have something in there that's going to give it that professional quality. So there are our tips for today. Let me know your thoughts about these in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I hope that we have helped you to get your writing done